Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my top 36 running back rankings and tiers for week number 6 of the 2024 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get into my top 36 running back rankings and tiers for week number 6 of the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with the no-brainer running back ones tier for week number 5 with my running backs 1 through 6. At number 1, we have Saquon Barkley of the Eagles going up against the Cleveland Browns at home in Philadelphia. I believe this is going to be an amazing matchup for Saquon Barkley. I get the Cleveland Browns defense entering into the year definitely was thought of as solid, but based upon what we have seen as of recently, they simply aren't as good as we believed, and I believe that Saquon Barkley here is going to run an absolute train. They were on bye last week. The week prior to that, they did end up getting clobbered by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but prior to that, Saquon was the running back 1, 9, and 1, and I believe he reclaims his spot atop the Iron Throne, Rhaenyra Targaryen style, as the running back number 1. Next up, we got Derrick Henry, Tractor Cedo of the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the left hands up, who are we? The Commanders at home in Baltimore. Now, Derrick Henry, outside of week 1, up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City, where he did have a down showing. He's been the running back 14, 3, 1, and 9 ever since. He scored a touchdown or more in every single game. The Washington Commanders defense is softer than baby shit, so I fully expect Derrick Henry to have a huge showing here. At number 3, we got Jordan, the numbers Mason. What do they mean of the 49ers going up against the Seahawks in Seattle tonight? Now, Jordan Mason started off the season looking great, right? Running back 5, 11, 24, and 5. And then last week up against the Arizona Cardinals, he puts up a stinker, just 9 PPR points as the running back 32. But if you actually look into the game, he played quite well. 14 carries for 89 yards. He also had 1 catch for 9 yards. The problem was he did not find the end zone, and he didn't get the 2-3 receptions that we would be looking for Jordan Mason this week. I believe he has a strong bounce back coming up against the Seahawks defense in Seattle that has looked the opposite of good up against the run as of recently. At number 4, we have Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home in New Orleans. Now, Alvin Kamara is currently questionable with a hip/hand injury, but it seems as though he's going to play as he was back in practice on Thursday today. Now, when it comes to Alvin Kamara, the fact that they're switching up the quarterback does make me feel nervous. Now, Derek Carr didn't get pulled because he's been playing like ass, but he did end up getting hurt, and the injury is believed to take him out for at least the next couple of weeks. So now we insert Spencer Rattler, who I think has a lot of upside, but it is to be seen just how good he will be at the NFL level. Though, if Spencer Rattler has enough brain cells to rub together, he is going to dump off the ball to Alvin Kamara a ton, and the Clint Kubiak system here should be to run the ball gently down the stream up against the Buccaneers for as long as possible. So even with the quarterback change, even with the less than ideal matchup, I still think Kamara gets it done. At number 5, we got Jahmyr Gibbs of the Detroit Lions going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. Running back 15, 10, 14, and 13 to start off the year, but this matchup has all of the makings of a wet dream for Jahmyr Gibbs, where he finally cracks inside of the top 5. I really do believe that Jahmyr Gibbs is a safe bet every single week to be a top 14, top 15-ish running back. The skills are there. Of course, the fact that David Montgomery is there to vulture away a lot of the goal line carries, to get enough carries to kind of piss Jahmyr Gibbs owners off. Ultimately, Jahmyr Gibbs is still fantastic and still has that big upside weekly. To close out the upper echelon tier here, we got Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers going up against the Atlanta Falcons at home in Carolina. Now, if you told me or anyone that Chuba Hubbard would be a must-start running back by week number 6, they would have called you crazy. They would have said, hey, you need to go back to the loony house, right? You have 0 brain power. You are running at 0. But based on what we've seen with Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle under center, running back 8, 7, and 4 ever since Dalton took over, eventually Jonathan Brooks is going to come back and potentially put a huge damper into the Chuba Hubbard train here. But as of right now, the Hubbard wheel has no brakes, even in a game where they got their backs blown out up against the Bears in Chicago last week. Chuba was a top 8 running back, so I expect him to do it yet again. Moving now down to the lower tier no-brainer running back ones, we got Breece Hall going up against the Buffalo Bills. Now, Breece Hall started off the season like a bat out of hell, running back 13, 4, and 12, and then proceeded to take a dump on the chest of fantasy football owners, running back 54 and 39. Now, the offense up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings in London last week was atrocious. They were moving at snail's pace, and I believe they will bounce back here. The Buffalo Bills defense has not been great up against the run. Breece Hall is still the clear RB1 on this team. Hopefully Rodgers is healthy enough to hand the rock off to Breece Hall a million times. At number 8, we got Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers going up against the Arizona Cardinals at home in Green Bay. Now, last week, I had so much joy watching Josh Jacobs run into the end zone because I was someone that was giving Josh Jacobs the Gawk Gawk 9000 special all summer long. I was talking about how great Jordan Love is and how this offense is going to be put into position a ton to score a shit ton of points. And they were doing that. The problem was when they knocked on the door, magically someone else was scoring a touchdown besides Josh Jacobs. But last week, when he barreled his way on into the end zone, I shed a tear. His first top 12 performance of the year. And I believe now that the monkey is off of his back, now that he popped his cherry in a Green Bay Packers uniform, I expect this to continue, and I love this spot up against the Cardinals. Next up, we got Kenneth Walker of the Seattle Seahawks going up against the San Francisco 49ers at home in Seattle on Thursday Night Football. Kenneth Walker's first 2 games of the season, he's only played in 3 games because he missed weeks 2 and 3. He was the running back 9 and running back 2. Last week, he went in the opposite direction as the running back 15 as he couldn't score a singular touchdown up against the New York Football Giants after having just 4 through his first 2 starts of the season. This week, though, I expect him to go back to normal. I don't expect the usual to be 5 fucking carries like last week. I also don't expect him to get 8 targets like last week. I think he'll go back to maybe his usual 4 or 5. I get that on paper, this isn't the greatest matchup on earth, but Kenneth Walker has proved to us this season that he deserves to be a stone cold lock as a top 12 running back. At number 10, we got DeAndre Swift going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in Chicago. Now, through the first 3 weeks of the season, I was victory lapping DeAndre Swift. I was coming on these videos, talking about how much of a genius I was, right? Week 1, running back 44, 22, then running back 33, then 45. And it's like, okay, now the team's coming out, hey, we're benching Swift. It's Roschon Johnson season. Give him the key to the city. And then after that came out, the motherfucker took that personally, running back 3 and 2. So I was wrong on DeAndre Swift, and I will happily acknowledge that as the guy has been dominant 50 Shades of Grey style, and the Jacksonville Jaguars defense will have zero answer for DeAndre Swift. It's going to be frustrating when he gets to the 1-yard line and Roschon Johnson barrels his big ass into the end zone. Fucking Kool-Aid man. Oh, yeah. But DeAndre Swift here up against the Jaguars. I love it. And DeAndre Swift makes me happy. Shout out Simple Jack at number 11 to close out this tier. We got James Conner going up against the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Now, the James Conner train has slightly come to a halt, right? Top 8 running back to start off the season. Then running back 53, 15, and 18. But he's still been solid, right? Despite the fact that the dude is starting to get really up there in age. despite the fact that the Cardinals offense has been very up and down, a roller coaster ride of the season, James Conner has stayed relatively stagnant, and I do feel confident in a top 12 ranking here up against a Packers defense that has not been as good as advertised. Next up, we move on into the high tier running back 2 range, and I understand that technically Tony Pollard is my running back 12, so he is technically a running back 1, but you get the point, right? Tony Pollard, Tony P, going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Tony Pollard used his nickname TP to wipe his ass with the Miami Dolphins defense prior to the bye week in Miami. 22 carries for 88 yards, 2 receptions for 20 yards, and a tug as the running back 14. The use of Tajay Spears prior to the bye week really does, in a way, put a damper into things for Tony Pollard, because if they continue to use Tajay Spears that much, then obviously Tony Pollard's floor as well as ceiling are going to take a drastic hit. But even with the usage of Tajay Spears that we saw in that game, Tony Pollard was still the running back 14, scoring 19 PPR points. The Indianapolis Colts defense is bottom of the barrel, downright laughable defensively. So Tony Pollard should be able to have a solid showing here, anywhere from running back 12 to 18. Next up, we got David Montgomery of the Lions going up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. Now, David Montgomery is essentially a stone cold lock to be anywhere from, I would say, running back 8 to 18 most weeks. Now, I understand technically his last game prior to the bye week, he was the running back 20 in primetime up against the Seahawks, but the motherfucker has scored a touchdown in every single game. The Dallas Cowboys defense is beaten and battered. They are banged up, and David Montgomery should have zero issue finding the end zone yet again. Now, his floor is definitely lowered by Jahmyr Gibbs. His ceiling is also lowered. It's not like with Jahmyr Gibbs healthy, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, David Montgomery is ever going to be like a top 3 running back, but if you just rank him anywhere from running back 12 to 18 every single week, you are going to be happy with his production. He is basically a condom wrap at the running back position. He is an incredibly safe bet weekly. Next up, we got Brian Robinson Jr. of the Left Hands Up. Who are we? The Commanders. Now, Brian Robinson Jr. was not seen at practice on Thursday. Now, it is very difficult to follow this because last week he didn't participate on Wednesday, didn't participate on Thursday, was limited on Friday, and then played on Sunday. So while for many other running backs, this participation pattern basically means that if you have them, you need to find another option, for Brian Robinson, he could easily end up suiting up on Sunday. If Brian Robinson misses, then you will see Jeremy McNichols move up the rankings, as well as Austin Eckler. If you want to get my updated rankings, they are posted on Patreon. You click on the link in the video description or just type in Notorious Fantasy on there. They're $7.50 a month. I also answer all of your guys' questions that you may have on there. So again, Brian Robinson, kind of spotty to play. Last week he played, had 7 carries for 18 yards and 2 touchdowns. The reason why he's not ranked significantly higher is because I am worried about his workload management coming into the week with an injury, and if I start to get a little bit more nervous, I could see him falling all the way down into the low tier running back 2 range. But as of right now, I'm not going to panic too much because I do think this game should be high scoring, leading to Brian Robinson potentially landing in the end zone. Next up, we got Joe Mixon. Now, Joe Mixon has not played since week number 2. He dominates in week 1. He is hitting the Indianapolis Colts with the 619 Rey Mysterio. Then he's playing early against the Bears, getting a lot of volume. Sure, he didn't have a big game, but he didn't play the whole game. But ever since then, he has been out, missing week 3, 4, and 5. This would be his 4th straight absence if he was to miss. Now, he did return to practice on Thursday with the ankle injury, which should point towards him potentially playing. Going up against the Patriots definitely isn't the best return matchup, right? It's not like he's going up against the Colts or the Jaguars or something like that, where it's really a wet dream matchup for him. But up against the Patriots, I definitely think, based upon the offense that the Houston Texans have, even without Nico Collins, they should be able to put things into overdrive here and slap up the Patriots. So if Joe Mixon plays, he knows a lot about slapping, and he also knows a lot about finding the end zone. So I love him this week if he plays. At number 16, we got Chase Brown. Now, prior to today, it kind of seemed like Zach Moss wasn't going to play, but now it's starting to feel more like he could play. Chase Brown was limited in practice with a quad injury, which obviously is far from ideal. And you want to monitor this situation because obviously if he's limited and then it comes out that he's not playing, you're not going to want him in your fantasy football lineup. So Chase Brown, back-to-back weeks inside of the top 10. So why don't you have him ranked inside the top 10? The matchup against the Giants is fine. Well, the Giants defense played really well up against the Seattle Seahawks and Kenneth Walker last week. Now, I do think that the Cincinnati Bengals offense is better than the Seahawks, but I digress. I worry about the fact that if Zach Moss plays, Chase Brown still isn't the clear lead back. He's going to get 12 to 15 carries. He's going to get around 3 targets. He's going to get goal line work, but he's not locked and loaded into being the clear running back one on the team. So again, against the Giants is a fine matchup for him, but I don't want to completely shift away from Zach Moss because if Zach Moss does play, he still has value. He still will see touches. But again, don't take away completely from Chase Brown because he's still a very talented player. Next up, we move to Bijan Robinson. I know what you might be thinking. Nick, how the fuck do you have Bijan Robinson not ranked inside of the top 12? How is he your running back 17? I drafted him as the running back 2. I know. Things have not been great for Bijan Robinson, but you want to know where things are great? Over on Underdog. If you sign up using promo code Notorious, you'll be able to claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. So if you sign up using code Notorious, your free pick will be tonight. Brock Purdy, higher than half a total yard. You match that with one of the players on the Seahawks or one of the players playing on Sunday or Monday. And if both those picks hit, you receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em. If you want to do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher. Again, make sure you guys use promo code Notorious plus getting that first time deposit offer and the bonus pick. Guess what? If the free pick, Thursday night football already happened, Nick, what's going to happen now? You'll just get a different player higher than half of a total yard. So again, make sure you sign up using promo code Notorious to get that free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Now, Bijan Robinson's ECR is running back 5, and I get Bijan Robinson has a wet dream matchup here up against the Carolina Panthers. But at what point do we say it's enough? At what point do we stand up and say, Bijan Robinson has screwed us for too long. We need to push him down the rankings. And maybe, just maybe, this will be a learning point for Bijan. Hey, we knocked you down a peg. We're not locking you in as the running back 1. You're down to a running back 2, buddy. And then maybe, just like Ayuk, just like these other guys we've done this experiment with, they then end up showing up. So Bijan, you've been demoted. You're basically almost close to getting fired. But here up against the Panthers, it's a great spot for him. I simply just don't trust him. At number 18, we got, you might just get hit with the Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Detroit Lions. Last week, running back 3 up against the Steelers in a tough matchup. 20 carries, 87 rushing yards, 2 receptions, 27 yards, and a touchdown. Back-to-back weeks with a touchdown, and it is crystal clear, like you hit a window with some Windex and wiped it off here, that Rico Dowdle is the guy in this offense. Old man Zeke, the Ewok-looking bastard, isn't doing diddly squat. Rico is the guy. Up against the Lions isn't the best spot for Rico, but I do think the volume will be able to elevate him into this range. Next up, we move on into the next tier here, the lower tier running back number 2s, beginning with Ramondre Stevenson. Now, last week, everyone got their panties in a bunch. Nick, I can't play Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson is going to get taken over by Antonio Gibson. And then you know what happened? Ramondre Stevenson flipped the double birds like Eli on the Manning cast a couple of years ago and was the running back number 4. The running back number 4. Now, he didn't practice on Wednesday, so that is something to monitor. But if he does suit up, you're going to want to play him. Now, I get he played up against the Dolphins defense. That is atrocious against the run as a Dolphins fan. Every single year without failure. It doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator is. Vic Fangio, Weaver. You could put Robert Saleh back there as the defensive coordinator, and we probably still would not be able to stop the run. It is a dysfunction of the offense, or of the defense, and it has been that case my whole entire life. Even in the Brian Flores, when the defense was locking people up and throwing away the key, we were still getting gashed by the run. Now, the Texans' defense is better. The Texans' defense is definitely better than the Dolphins. Now, Ramondre has a new quarterback, which could lead to very negative game scripts. Or it could lead to positive game scripts because they're not trailing by a bunch because Jacoby Brissett is too much of a pussy to throw the ball down the field. We'll see what happens. I'm still not mega confident in Ramondre. That's why he's not ranked higher, but he does feel like a fine low-end running back too. Next up, we got Trey Sermon going up against the Titans in Tennessee. Jonathan Taylor probably not going to play. As I said last week, Jonathan Taylor's going to miss some time, but then there were people in the comment section. They said it was a minor injury. It's a minor high ankle sprain. When's the last time a motherfucker got a high ankle sprain and it was minor? That stuff really, really hurts. So, running back 6 last week for Sermon, but I will tell you, little Fugazi, he got the touchdown, had a bunch of receptions, didn't look the best running the rock. He's averaging 3.3 yards per carry this season. I'm not going to batter him down here. The matchup against the Titans is fine, but Goodson's also going to get enough touches to potentially frustrate you. It's not like Trey Sermon is a workhorse running back like Jonathan Taylor, and he can't even hold Jonathan Taylor's jockstrap because he's nowhere close to the skill level. But if the Colts offense is percolating here, they should be able to get Sermon a touchdown, which will make him finish in this range. Next up, we got J.K. Dobbins going up against the Denver Broncos in Denver. Now, Dobbins was another one of these guys that came out the gate just blazing, right? He was Human Torch style, running back 4, running back 5, and as a J.K. Dobbins truther all summer, I was feeling bricked up with just happiness, right? It was amazing. J.K. Dobbins, running back 4, running back 5, over 130 rushing yards. He found the end zone. But then after that, running back 38, running back 34. He's still averaging 6.1 yards per carry, though, and it's important to note that he did bad in 2 rough spots against the Steelers and the Chiefs. Problem? Big problem. This is another tough matchup up against the Broncos. But then he gets the Cardinals, the Saints, the Browns, the Titans, the Bengals, the Ravens, right? Matchups where he can bounce back. So while this matchup up against the Denver Broncos, to me, is not the most ideal, the game plan here for the Chargers is going to be to run the ball a ton. Dobbins is the clear workhorse guy coming out the bye week. He should have enough juice to finish as a low-end RB2. Next up, we got Zach Moss. Now, he's another guy that is questionable. He got hurt, and it looked severe. Then it kind of came out that, hey, maybe the fact that we thought that was very severe was kind of just our eyes deceiving us, like when you're in your room and you like laid some clothes out on, you know, a table or a chair or something, and you wake up in the middle of the night, you look, and it looks like there's some creepy bastard in your room watching you sleep. I know everyone has experienced this. If you haven't, maybe you just have a bad imagination, right? I've got a great imagination. I also get, what is that called? Sleep paralysis, which is actually really bad. The worst it ever happened to me, quick little story time here, was when I was visiting my friends at Rutgers. Me, Johnny, David, Kevin, I'm just doxing these guys. Ravi, not like you guys know who these guys are, but we were hanging out, and it was after Jake Paul fought KSI. I was sleeping on the bed, on my friend Kevin's bed, and out of nowhere, I just started having sleep paralysis, and it was one of the scariest things ever, because the way you get out of it, if you have ever had sleep paralysis, is you got to kind of go, you sound a little bit like a silly goose, and you got to try to fucking shake it off like that Taylor Swift song. And my friend Kevin thought I was going to die. That's just an interesting story. He was thinking about like, oh, should we call the ambulance? Very funny story. Has nothing to do with anything though. Zach Moss going up against the Giants. I know there's a bunch of people, skip, 10 seconds, Nick. We don't give a fuck what you have to say about your life. All we care about is the fantasy advice, which is true, right? We don't have to have a 30-second long story, even though the story's funny, I guess, if you're there, but you had to be there. Any of my friends that are watching this that were there, they probably would think that was funny. So going up against the Giants, solid spot for Moss. Again, assuming he plays, he was limited on Thursday with the foot. If he's able to play, you probably still want him in your lineup, though. Next up, we move on into the low-end running back 2s, and the high-end running back number 3s. So we began with Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary, another guy that is as questionable as it gets, limited on Thursday with their groin. If he does not play, then not only does Tyron Tracy get ranked here, he's actually going to bump up into the next tier. Why? Because Tracy is better than Singletary. Said it all summer? It looks true. Now, Nick, it was just one game. I get it. You say not to panic after one game, and I agree not to overreact. But he looked great. Singletary, though, also has looked solid this season. The Bengals' defense is trash, so this should be a safe enough spot for Singletary if he plays. Next up, we got Najee Harris. And once you accept that Najee Harris is going to get you 10 fantasy points, and if he got you 18, the fantasy gods have blessed you, then you will have a lot easier time sleeping. If you're assuming that just because he's going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas, just because this is a wet dream matchup for Najee Harris, doesn't mean he will be successful. He's not the same Najee Harris he was his rookie year. He is a shell of himself. Now, is he some trash can running back that isn't even a starter worthy at the NFL level? The answer to that would be no. I still do think he's a fine NFL running back, but he's far from the yesteryears just a couple of years ago. Great spot up against the Raiders, but if you rank him too highly, you're bound to get disappointed. Speaking of disappointments, we got Travis Etienne going up against the Chicago Bears in Chicago, limited in practice on Wednesday with the shoulder. And honestly, I'm just kind of tired of Etienne. He's been fine. He's been like a top 24 running back most weeks. And, you know, he's not a bad player by any means, but the facts are the facts. Fucking Tank Bigsby looks better than him. And if the team magically shifted the paradigm of this offense to leaning more towards Tank Bigsby, would anyone be surprised? The answer to that should be fuck no, baby. Etienne still should be the guy because Doug Peterson continues to just give him the Hawk to special, to continue to blow the guy, suck him dry. So until we end up seeing Bigsby truly take over, I can't rank Etienne lower than Bigsby, but Bigsby is sniffing up his ass right behind him as the next guy. Tank Bigsby going up against the Bears in Chicago. Running back won last week, over 100 rushing yards, 28 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 8 yards a carry. Again, he could easily fall down to 6, 7, 8 touches in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me. So I'm not going to sit here and completely rank him way too high, blow things out of proportion here, but based on what I've seen, Bigsby looks better than Etienne. Next up, we got another running back room that makes me want to puke. Rachaad White, as well as Bucket Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against the Saints. Rachaad White did not practice on Thursday, so if you have Tank Bigsby and you have Rachaad White, technically, this is best case scenario for you, because if Rachaad White doesn't play, then you can bump Bucky Irving up the rankings. You can bump him into the low tier running back 2 tier. You might even consider moving him into the high tier running back 2 range because of how good he has looked. But when Rachaad White plays, it's not, you know, Bucky Irving hierarchy. It's not even Rachaad White hierarchy. It's just a fucking split share of death. So if Rachaad White is out, Bucky Irving moves up the rankings in a big way. If they're both playing, they're just both going to be ranked back-to-back, and neither of them really get me excited at all. Next up, we got Alexander Mattison of the Raiders going up against the Steelers. Rough matchup for him, but he has scored a touchdown in 3 of 5 games, and they don't really want to use Amir White no more, so he's going to get 10-plus carries a game, a couple of targets. So if he can find the end zone here, he should be fine. I don't love him, but the volume gets him ranked here, and maybe Aiden O'Connell, you know, brings some fire, some juice into this offense. Next up, we got Ty Johnson. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Nick, where is James Cook? James Cook is not ranked. Now, James Cook is dealing with an injury. Now, for James Cook, it doesn't appear to be anything long-term. So it doesn't seem like, hey, if you have James Cook, your season is cooked. Your season is over. It is all ogre now. But James Cook is sidelined on Thursday with a foot/toe injury. I read on Twitter, which is the most reliable place to get every type of information, right? There's never anything fucking fugazi on there. But someone said a fantasy doctor. Now, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sin, so I do try to tend to believe these people. What do you mean by you people? I do tend to believe these people. So they said that he hurt his foot when he was trying to like toe tap into the end zone, that maybe he has turf toe. That's not the best. I don't think he's going to play. And based on what I've seen, I think Ty Johnson would be more worthy to play compared to Ray Davis. Now, Ray Davis is going to be in the next tier, spoiler alert. They're both going to get enough touches to siphon off of one another, but it does seem like if this game is higher scoring, we'll see more Ty Johnson because he's the better pass catcher, which is going to push him into the lower end tier. But again, that doesn't mean I don't like Ray Davis. If someone already has Ty Johnson in your league, which is like a 0.00% chance, and you have James Cook, Ray Davis will be fine. Javonte Williams going up against the Chargers at home in Denver. Javonte was the running back 12 last week, but he's another guy where I don't want to jump onto the bandwagon after one good game. Why is that? Because while I think this is going to be a run-heavy game up against the Chargers, Javonte doesn't have a strong hierarchy in this offense. They still use other running backs as well, and his touchdowns can easily get vultured by Bo Nix. So while a lot of people might feel a little bit more confident in Javonte, I don't want to go crazy, go bananas, loving all on him when we've seen this season he just hasn't been that effective. Next up, we got Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford's very talented. Jerome Ford has all of the skills to pay the bills. He has the skills to put the Philadelphia Eagles into the fucking crucifix submission from the WWE, right? He has the ability to put someone into the walls of Jericho. The problem is the offense is so limp dick. They have nothing with Deshaun Watson that it's hard to find touchdowns for Jerome Ford because they don't get to the goal line. You need Jerome Ford to get 5, 6, 7, 8 targets to potentially kind of, keep him floating from the bullshit that Deshaun Watson is. So Jerome Ford falls into a range where I don't really even want to start him because of the quarterback play. Next up, we got Eckler. Again, he's going to get a big bump up Tony Montana style if Mr. Brian Robinson doesn't play. Going up against the Ravens isn't the best situation, but Eckler did practice in full on Thursday with the heel injury. He's going to get a lot more carries without Brian Robinson, but they're still going to use Jeremy McNichols as well. Eckler's a guy that's going to get 2, 3, 4, 5 targets a game. Could find the end zone in a high-scoring spot, so that's why Eckler is ranked here. Next up, we got Ray Davis. I do love the talent of Ray Davis. I liked him coming out of college. He hasn't necessarily looked the best, though, when given touches, but he hasn't also been given enough touches to where I can really judge him, right? 3 carries, 9, 7, 7, 0. Gonna get maybe a target or 2 as well. Not a great spot up against the Jets, but he'll be fine if James Cook misses. Then we got Roschon Johnson. You're essentially just hoping for a touchdown. You're praying for that touchdown. The praying for a touchdown tier. He's got a touchdown in week 4, 2 touchdowns in week 5. Swift's gonna do all the dirty work, but Swift might fall over on the 1-yard line. They take him out and throw Roschon in there, and he might be able to get you a duo of touchdowns yet again. To close things out, we got Tajay Spears. Now, again, his workload increased in a huge way in week 4. 15 carries for 39 yards wasn't very effective, but he did have 2 targets, 2 receptions, 0 yards, and a touchdown. I expect his workload to decrease, but again, after they pushed him heavily the week prior, and because the matchup here against the Colts is great, I do think Spears could be sneaky good. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. If you did enjoy, like it owes you money, leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. If you want access to the updated rankings, they'll be up on Patreon. You can also check out Underdog using promo code Notorious to get that free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. I love you guys all so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen them already. Good boy!